Today I'm going to look at installing Ultrix 4.5 for VAX on an emulated, well, VAX of course, under SimH. On screen right now is the initialization file for SimH. Walk through it, give it 64 megs of memory. With an RA90 for the main disk, that should be about 1.2 gigs, I think. Set the second drive 3 to be a CD-ROM. Disable some stuff just to avoid any interactions. We don't want, although we shouldn't have to disable that stuff, but that's things like the port server and tape drives. Put the CD image there and non-volatile RAM and the Ethernet interface onto each ETH3. Let's fire it up. And see how this goes. Let's boot the CPU. Oh, here's one thing. If one wants to look at doing graphics on here, so later SimH has come with a QVSS, basically a monochrome frame buffer support. And you can do that by setting CPU model to VAX stations. This will work on the the MicroVAX 2 for older VAX stations. This is the MicroVAX 3900 here. So if you set the CPU model to VAX station, you get the graphical display. Not going to go through that right now, just because it's going to be hard to see on the screen capture here. But we saw. Let me just get out of here. Because I could have set it back, but I don't know if there's any interactions going back from VAX station back to the regular, I guess, VAX server, for lack of a better term. Let's fire up the CPU. And boot from the CD. And here we go, Ultrix 4.5. So 1995 vintage, which will be interesting. It may be fun to compare this head-to-head against SunOS 414, which is of a similar vintage. So we'll take a look at that maybe in another video. So one of the things here is SimH does not correctly report, I don't know if it's SimH or Ultrix doesn't correctly report some of the boot device here. So we've got to go edit the install script. And unfortunately, the only editor available here is ed. So the ancient teletype style line editor. So we have install.1. And yeah, this is, someone figured this out, which is pretty exciting. So if we see this line, so BTD, I guess, was supposed to return the boot device. I think. I don't know. I haven't reviewed the whole thing. Again, looking at it with ed is difficult, I should say. So let's replace this. So now if we bring up line 173 again, we now have that. And also 193. And do our substitution. So write it and quit it. And Control D gets us back here. I'm going to do the advanced installation. And this will give us some partitioning. So the procedure here is we're going to copy the mini root. And this works just like any of the old-timey Unix installs. You copy mini root, boot from mini root, and then install packages. So it's pretty straightforward. So Want our RA90 here for our system disk. Now I don't have a whole heck of a lot of experience with Ultrix. I've used a couple of the workstations in an installed setting. I found that they didn't quite measure up to the equivalent offerings from Sun at the time, or even IBM or SGI. Uh, I didn't have any experience with the equivalent HP gear. I did in fact own a personal deck station. Or I don't know if it was was it a personal deck station? A deck station, one of the RISC-based ones, based on the MIPS processor, in the later 90s. And of course, being young and foolish, I went and wiped the Ultrix on there and put Linux on instead. Um, which is, what I did back then. Even my SparkStation IPC ran Linux. So we've got the mini root copied here. So we're now back to our SimH prompt. It's halted. Reset it. So now we can boot from our disk 0, DUA 0, and continue the installation. And things are coming back. So note here, VM Unix, right? So it's one of those interesting things where they call it VM Unix. Obviously, the VM stands for virtual memory. To the best of my knowledge, don't quote me on that, but one of those interesting bits and pieces that different Unices and things call it something different. I remember way back when in Linux when kernel compression came on and they would do VM linuz to indicate the compressed kernel. But yeah, so other systems may just call it Unix or something or some other name. So we'll call this Ultrix. And out of the box, this is not Y2K compliant. All right, so pretty ancient here. So we'll just say we'll get it here. So we'll get it to roll over to the year 2000. So we'll do December 31st, 1 minute to midnight, and we're in Central. Yeah, it does. USA. Yeah, I want the default. So the Ultrix work system software is things like deck windows. Um, just in interests of time, and since we're doing this as we'll install the Ultrix work system. I don't know if we'll play with it. This video is just going to be the installation. Probably more play. We'll do a kind of head-to-head, this versus Solaris, and yeah, we'll just pick the default there. Deck windows, but maybe we'll be able to get in remotely over the network. Um, I did try, and my first hack at this, playing around with this on SimH, I'm like, I want to use the graphical features, right? To say, hey, this is a VAX station. And there's currently an issue, and there is an opened issue with this against SimH, is the mouse does not behave correctly here. So it's not really usable um, as kind of an interface. So the mouse jumps around quite a bit. The position isn't fixed. I haven't actually looked at the code, but maybe it's something simple. It may just be, hey, it was built for an older SDL. I'm using SDL2 here to support some other stuff, so maybe rolling back to SDL1, 1X would work. Let's do all the sets because we want to be able to compile stuff later. And this is going to perhaps take a little bit of time. So I'm going to step away for a minute or two and pause the recording. It's just going to say, hey, it's copying this. Grab a cup of coffee, and we'll pick this back up when it's complete. Well, after a long coffee break of software installation, finally completed. It's got to drop on some upgrade sets, which I guess gets us up to 4.5.1. Um, I may be putting out something else a little bit later today, of course, because I don't have a real camera. It'll just be shot with my cell phone. But I'm waiting on an Amazon same day to get a PS2 mouse. I have a PS2 keyboard, a PS2 mouse. That may be a clue as to what it is, but it was an amazing find on eBay. I got something that was supposed to contain something else, but turns out the whole thing worked. So we'll take a look at that maybe a little bit later. So again, the kernel's getting upgraded here. We have a generic kernel. Now it's going to ask if we want any kernel options. I can't think of anything we really need here, except maybe CD-ROM support. We may want to load a CD. No. So you see now we've rolled over to the year 2000. That took about half an hour, so certainly not terribly quick. And that's what I find interesting, that VMS, actually had more stuff to do. I don't know if the VMS, say package sets were not compressed, and our delay here was due to file decompression. The I/O performance should be the same, and in fact, this is a slightly more tuned version of or binary of SimH, using some extra tweaks in the Intel compiler. Yeah, got it a couple percent faster. So we're just, I guess, now syncing disks and doing some final writes, and we'll boot up the newly installed Ultrix. So as I said earlier, I don't have a whole lot of experience with Ultrix. It does seem in many ways very BSD-ish, and that's why I would say that the closest thing I could compare it to would be SunOS 4 series, right? So the old SunOS, it's BSD-ish, but not, a pure BSD, 4.3, 4.2 style system. So it's got some extra bits and pieces, maybe from System 5. And my other gripe with sort of these, this is essentially abandonware, a lot of these things. And I know maybe some of the licensing says, hey, we can't make it open source. I understand don't make it open source, but at least make it more readily available for people to play with. Because there are people interested in the history and the development of these things. Ultrix is one of them. Again, this mid-90s era, not terribly interesting. But certainly, as the clock rolled back a bit, why not make this stuff more freely available? No one is actually going to be using this for any sort of business purpose that I could imagine. Maybe some people are. I don't know. As I saw looking at eBay, VAXs still demand a premium. Yeah, $3,000 VAX station. So maybe people are still using it for some business need, or probably in the defense industry. Okay, we are finally done. So this was pretty slow. So let's back in, fire up the CPU here, and take a look around. So I could set, auto boot, etc. to get this fired up more quickly, but let's just see what it's like. So as I said, Ultrix may be a little bit foreign to me, but again, it's the wonderful thing about anything based on in the style of Unix, I should say, right? Is once you're familiar with one, picking up a new one not terribly difficult. Of course, there are goofiness that happens in each one, and there is the big System 5 BSD uh, divide, but a lot of that is kind of niggling, you know, command line options and things. In the modern world, that's much less severe. So here we have our root directory. Let's see what, so we've used up about 3/4 of the disk. And let's add a user. SimH. So it puts users in /user users. No problems. That's an old timey thing to do. And C shell, fantastic. I have mixed feelings about the C shell. It has some interesting features. I probably would never actually write a shell script in the C shell. For many years, I did use the TC shell as my login shell, uh, especially when on things like older Sun machines and SGIs I had on my desk. Use TC shell. I've now mainly switched over to Bash. Flirted with ZSH a little bit, although I don't really take advantage of a lot of the features. So, see, TC shell worked really well for many years. Maybe I'll start using TC shell again. But again, Bash is kind of the default in Linux world, and that's where I'm forced to do most of my work. So, there. We'll see what our interface is. Okay. No dmessage. So yeah, a little goofy. What would it be? Okay. See about getting the network set up here. Let's see. Net setup. Yes, okay. Abbreviated names. Well, this is a little unusual. No subnet routing. Host number. All right, we'll call this 105. Yeah, I think I want to broadcast with all ones. And so we are QE0. Okay. This is an unusual network setup config. Okay. Network is set up. See how networks are started here. Setup. Okay, we're up on the network. Let's see if we can get out anywhere. No. This is probably riveting, riveting watching here. So perhaps perhaps I need a reboot for the network. We'll maybe do that in a follow-up video. Let's see what. Okay, so now that works. Let's see what's in var. EM. So this is pretty lean. Install, not a whole lot going on here. Uh, as I discover a bit more of this, may have more things to report. Okay, so we have the UCB here for a lot of those. So it does have VI in the full install. So you're not stuck using ed. Uh, so it did correctly create let's log in as the user here. Okay, so this is much better. So we are connected. Is my Sunblade just waiting for its disks to spin up? Which may be the case. It's been it has been idling. Let me fire up a new terminal. Well, I guess we're gonna end it here. Something is going on with the Sunblade that should be working better. We'll do this. Let me pause this here and stop that. Unix is wonderful, isn't it? So, okay. Okay, well that does work. So, something is going on with, okay. Something's going on with the networking here in either SimH or Ultrix. My guess is it is Ultrix. Uh, but let's just quit that. Uh, we have a compiler. We have a Fortran compiler. Let's find out where. Okay. So we just get a C compiler, but it doesn't look like we get a Fortran compiler. It's about manual pages. Okay. We get man pages. Don't know really what else to report about Ultrix at this point. Probably, like I say, I don't know, try to figure out what's going on network-wise, but maybe do another video about deck windows, because this one's getting a little long at this point. Uh, I really should test these things out and maybe do a dry run before I decide to start recording. I got a little flustered there. Why is the network not working? Make sure that's actually up. Yeah, that's up. I have a real address. Oh, I don't have anything else on Ethernet. Oh, let's see. No ping. Okay. Okay, ping is working. Very unusual. Let's see if I can FTP. Okay, so FTP works. So obviously something is it's not liking getting to my Sunblade. But there we go. Networking is working. Uh, Everything's peachy at this point. Stay tuned for a follow-up video on deck windows. Again, this is kind of long and it's gotten pretty rambly. The other thing, I probably shouldn't record videos this early in the morning. Um, it's it is way too early. Um, and hopefully this was enjoyable. Let me know if you want to see uh, deck windows, and stay tuned later today for something interesting shot on the phone.